Alright, so let's get this install started. The tools you will need are a small flathead, a 2mm hex, and a 2.5mm hex. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the heads of each of the sides of the throttles. We're going to use a 2.5mm bit to remove all of these black screws, and you'll see on the inside of each throttle you're going to have these silver screws that actually mount the head to the stick of the throttle. So let's go ahead and start removing those. So I'm going to work on the right one first. There are 2 screws here on this side, and then on the other side there are 3 that you need to remove. 1, 2, and 3. So let's start removing these. You'll notice this one is longer than the other ones. So just keep note that the long one goes in this hole. I should mention there's also one that is substantially smaller. That one goes in this hole. Okay, with all the screws removed from the head, you'll see that they come apart just like this. The next step would be to, well, I guess with your 2.5 still attached, we can remove the mounting screws, which are the 2 silver ones here at the bottom. They're machine hex screws, so don't lose these. Alright, so with all the screws removed, you can now separate these 2 halves, and you'll see that they don't come apart because they are still attached by these 2 ribbon cables. This small one here and this big one here. So we can't actually lift this up because those ribbon cables go through a channel. Well, the big one goes through a channel which is connected to the handle part. I guess, what did I call that? I don't know. So the way we remove these is you're going to take your flathead and push up a little bit to compress it and just pull up. Pull straight out. Get this one out of the way. And I'm going to do the same for this one. So in here you can see you're right on this little lip. You push in and then up and it comes out. Super easy, just like that. And now you can fully remove the head. The base will come right off. There you go. And you'll be left with that. So this is where your throttle head mounts. These are where those 2 silver screws go in. And yeah, that's that. Okay, let's start on the left side now. 2.5mm bit. I'm going to leave these in for last, just so that nothing moves around. And again, these 2 halves are going to still stay connected. This one's a little different. We're not going to take off any of these, which is what attaches the top half to the base half. We're just going to remove this plug. Okay, so there we go. Now let's remove the 2 silver screws that mount it. All right, and with that, with this ribbon cable disconnected and with the mounting screws gone, this whole thing comes right off. Just slide it up, just like that. So when you're fully disassembled, you should end up with this. The 2 halves of the right throttle, 2 halves of the left throttle, your whole throttle quadrant without the halves, and a bunch of screws. These are the right-hand screws, these are the left-hand screws. So take a note of how many there are here and make sure you have the same. All right, for the next step, we will be removing the 2, or actually the 4 bottom hex screws here for each of the finger lifts. So just go ahead and start removing those. So now this is the setup of screws you should have. These are the 2 finger lift screws, or the 4 finger lift screws that you should have just removed. So now it's time to install our igniters. This is the igniter, and this is the finger lift input. So when you lift up each finger lift, this part of the finger lift rail is going to compress this button. All right, so all we gotta do to put this on is fish the ribbon cable through the opening and slide it on. You will notice that it hits right here. So we remove these 2 screws so we can take the finger lift and rotate it. So this will pass right through, right into the opening here. That's it. All right, let's do the left side. Push the ribbon cable through the opening and slide it over. Just like that. Don't want to force it. It should go on pretty snug. Just like that. All right. And you'll see when you push the finger lift up, that rail pushes that button. And you got your igniter. All right. So let's start putting everything back together. Cool. So as you may have guessed, it is basically the same process in reverse. So I'm going to start by putting the finger lift screws in to secure these. Okay, so to put these back on, to put the throttle heads back on, you're going to fish the ribbon cable through the opening of the throttle head. Okay, and then just push it down. Alright, just like that. And it should sit right on top of the finger lifts. Or I'm sorry, the igniter and finger lift input. It sits right on top. And that's it. Just screw it down and everything should be good. Don't mind the hole here. You don't have to do any of that modification. I did that as a test for something. It worked, but I didn't want you guys to have to drill your holes, so I redesigned everything. So let's go tighten this down. First thing I like to do now, since it's in reverse, is screw in these anchor points. So a little trick I like to do with these, if you can't get it to seat, is actually just put the screw in and then twist it counterclockwise until it clicks. And that means it's seated into the threads. And that way you won't cross thread anything. There you go, it clicked, and now it just goes in nice and smooth. Anytime you're working with machine screws, you always want to make sure it's seated before you start screwing it in. So I'm gonna do a little counterclockwise until that clicked. There you go, and now it's seated. Now I'm gonna switch to my flathead because we are going to plug these in before we do anything else. I'm just going to push that in here. Like so. Boom, just like that. Just like that. Alright, so once you guys get those, give it just a little tug, make sure it's snug in there, and you're done. So let's start closing it up. I'm going to take the long screw first and put it in this bottom hole here. Now some of the regular length screws. So there's this length, and then there is this length. So this one we're going to reserve for the other side. This is what's going in here. So we got one there and one there. You don't have to do the cross thread trick here. These are self-threading in plastic, so it should find it pretty easily. All right. Switch to the other side, and we're going to take that small screw and put it right in here. So there's the small one, and then the last one is right under here. Okay, same process for the left side. So, but we're not dealing with two separate halves like we were. Remember, these are still tethered together by these three plugs. So again, we're just going to fish this ribbon cable through the bottom here. Make sure nothing is binding. In fact, I'll just take this and pull it up. There we go. And it should slide right over. There we go. It's on. So for me, this one is a little more tricky because of the angle that it's at. This plug here needs to go right here. So this plug, this input. Okay, there it is, and then boom. So now just give it a little tug just to make sure it's seated. There we go, and we're good. Cool. And you're done. That was the whole installation process for our igniters and our finger lift inputs. Okay, so we're at the computer now. First thing we're going to do is search joy, Joy.cpl. There we go. We're going to open this up, and you'll see all of your game controllers here. You'll notice Kodiak Innovations is not in the list. That is because we are unplugged. So we're just going to plug in our USB-C into the Arduino box here, into the controller box, plug it in, and it'll show right up. And you'll see that it lays nice around the detent, my detent, if you want to get that too. But it should just lay straight out just like this on either side. And when you're articulating the throttles, it should not bind on anything, and you should be good to go. There it is, Kodiak_Innovations. You can double click that and go to the test setting, or the test tab, and you'll see all the inputs here. So you can just go ahead and test it. You can do left igniter right there, input 3, right igniter, input 1, left finger lift, input 4, right finger lift, input 2. So everything's working correctly. Just to give it another quick test. Yep, we're good to go. So you can go right into your sim and bind it up directly like this. It should show Kodiak Innovations if you're in DCS at the top, and yeah, should be easy as that. Thank you guys, I hope you enjoy.